Well, hi again, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of The Blitz, a weekly video courtesy of WEOL AM 930 and FM 100.3, and of course the Chronicle Telegram. We are here in the Chronicle Telegram studios. Tim Alcorn with WEOL, along with Matt Douglass from the radio station, and of course Bruce Bishop. And this week, the lovely Kristen Bauer assisting Bruce with the Blitz video.
It's a full house. If we were playing poker, Tim, we'd be winners.
All right, well, let's get right into the Blitz. A quick look back at Week 3, which took about 3 days to complete. There were games that were finished on Friday. There were games that were finished on Saturday. Brookside finished their game on Monday. But all in all, once we got through it, not a bad week for Lorain County, 10-6. And there were 3 head-to-head matchups, so you were guaranteed 3 winners, but of course, guaranteed 3 losers. So all in all, the county's getting better week by week. 5-11 in week 1, 9-7 in week 2, 10-6 in week 3.
Yeah, cream's starting to rise to the crop, I think, a little bit here in Lorain County. We're seeing some of those better schools, some to be expected, some a bit of a surprise, really doing what they need to do. Some big victories for teams as well that ended up with losses through the first 2 weeks, or maybe were surprised in one of their first 2 games of the year as well.
Well, let's talk about big wins in week 3, whether they won on Friday or Saturday or even Monday as Brookside did. But some big wins that I think stand out. Boy, Lorain High desperately needed a win. Dave McFarland's team had been struggling at 0-2, although as Dave readily admitted, against very good competition in the first 2 weeks of the year. But they got that first W on Friday night when they beat Elyria High, so a big win for Lorain. Also a big win for Firelands. They had come out of the blocks at 0-2. Another game that was able to be completed on Friday night. The Falcons shut out their big rival Vermilion by a score of 21-0. So a couple of big wins there, and Matt, I know you got a couple.
Yeah, we had some great games, as you mentioned. And one of them I was really paying attention to see how they do is the Wellington Dukes. Got their first victory of the season in week number 2. Took on New London, a team they were able to beat last season. Wellington Dukes are 2-1. They had a good victory over New London in one of those games that split over 2 days on Friday night and Saturday. So a strong victory for them. Tim, you mentioned Brookside with a tremendous victory. I just want to touch on that again. That's a team that's progressively gotten better under new head coach Scott O'Donnell. And for them to get that victory over JFK on Monday and now get 3 days to practice before they take on Oberlin.
Short week.
Yeah, very short week. And speaking of Oberlin, they get a big victory against Trinity. And boy, that was a high-scoring affair on Friday night. 58-42 the final. But the Oberlin Phoenix run game was really the story of that one. 490 yards on the ground, just very impressive.
Now, we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a bit. So through 3 weeks, 3 teams are 3-0. We've got Amherst at 3-0, Avon at 3-0, and Clearview is at 3-0. We also have 3 teams still looking for that first win. 0-3, Vermilion, North Ridgeville, and Columbia. But boy, Columbia has really been hit by the injury bug.
Boy, they have this season. I mean, their young quarterback, just a sophomore, Andrew Champagne, gets knocked out in week number 1. So they're dealing with some youth, some guys who had to step up maybe before they were necessarily ready. But they're fighting, Tim. I mean, they were right there with Waynedale in week 2. They ended up losing by 7, played another close one against Northwestern in week number 3. So they're on the verge of getting that first victory, and it's going to come sooner rather than later.
A Jason Ward coach team, and of course Jason, the head coach at Columbia, will never back down. Sure. They'll never wave that white flag. They will keep fighting no matter how banged up they are. And obviously now they get into Lorain County League play, the new Lorain County League this Friday night. So perhaps that gives them a little more energy.
I would think so. I think that's part of the fun of it for these guys. It's a new season, essentially. You've played your non-conference. Now it's time to move on. Teams you're a little more familiar with. I know the Lorain County League is a bit newer, but all these teams were in the Patriot Athletic Conference. They didn't necessarily play them all every single year, but they do know who they are and what to expect when they step on the field.
Well, we've talked about some of the teams that fared well in week 3 as far as Lorain County is concerned. So that leads us right into our First Federal Savings of Lorain Team of the Week, brought to you by First Federal Savings of Lorain. As we said, the county went 10-6 last week, but there was one team that really stood out to Matt Douglass and I as far as being worthy of the First Federal Savings of Lorain Team of the Week. Do you want to announce it or me?
I'll go ahead and do it. I already kind of touched on it. The Oberlin Phoenix.
Yes.
I don't know that I've ever seen a more impressive performance. 490 yards on the ground. I almost said 500 because they took a knee twice at the end of the game in shotgun. But if you stop and think about it, it's about 5 yards. They were on the verge of 500 yards right there. So very impressive. They got touchdowns from just about anyone and everyone. A bit of a breakout game, perhaps, for the Oberlin Phoenix.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? In the Chronicle Telegram picket line on Friday, Oberlin was a 10-1 underdog. Kevin April, hats off to you. Kevin somehow had Oberlin beating Trinity. You did too in our forecast show. So to you and Kevin April, well done, and to the Oberlin Phoenix, very well done.
Yeah, very impressive victory by the Oberlin Phoenix, and we'll see what they got coming up. Brookside only on 3 days of practice, so this should be fun.
All right. So again, Oberlin is our First Federal Savings of Lorain Team of the Week, brought to you by First Federal Savings of Lorain. Well, last week we started something that we had some fun with, and you know what? We kind of fly by the seat of our pants here, so we thought, well, that was fun. Let's do that again. So we have come up with an award called the top two from these two. So each of us will pick two top performances from the previous week as far as football players that really stood out for us as far as their individual performance. So the top two from these two. Did you go first last week?
I think I did, yeah.
All right, so I'll start it
go
off
ahead.
this week. So here we go. My first top two, Avon Lake quarterback Michael Corbo. Now, Avon Lake was one of those teams that had to wait, and they had to wait a while. They got a few plays in, I believe, on Friday night before their game got delayed against Berea Mid-Park. Came back Saturday evening and played Berea Mid-Park, and Shoreman quarterback Michael Corbo led the Shoreman to a big win. Michael Corbo rushed the football 8 times for 112 yards, including 2 rushing touchdowns, one of 30 yards and one of 9 yards. Well, he's the quarterback, so he also threw the ball very well as he threw for 186 yards and 2 touchdowns. So Michael Corbo of Avon Lake accounted for 4 Shoreman touchdowns, 2 through the air, 2 on the ground. I think that's worthy of a top performance as far as Week 3 is concerned. And then my other top performance from Week 3, we're going to go to Southern Lorain County. Boy, the Wellington Dukes, as you mentioned, Matt, 2-1 on the year. Both Matt and I really think highly of second-year head coach Rob Howells, doing a fantastic job rebuilding that Duke program. They got that big win, again, a game that went into Saturday, but they crushed New London. Mason McClellan, Duke running back, had a phenomenal contest. Rushed for 189 yards on 27 carries. So they gave him the football a lot. And boy, Mason McClellan came through 189 on 27 carries and a touchdown. So he's my second of the top 2 performances from last week.
Very well deserved. Both players, I think, stepping up big for their teams. Tim, I stayed with the Oberlin Phoenix team here on
You're really on Oberlin this
week. It's such an impressive an offensive lineman to see somebody going for 490 yards. I mean, that says they did a lot right. So let's start right there with the Oberlin Phoenix. Jaden Harris, 211 yards for the Phoenix, 2 touchdowns. One of those touchdowns was for 56 yards rushing. His teammate, Dante Colbert, is my other top 2 for the week. He had 136 yards rushing with 2 touchdowns. So it's hard not to be high on that Oberlin team. Now, the quarterback is Ari Harrison at 101 yards, so he was right on the verge of that top 2 pick as well. And I wanted to bring his name up, an honorable mention, so to speak, Corey Middlebrooks of Oberlin. He had a pick 6 for 11-yard touchdown and a 30-yard fumble return for a touchdown.
So 2 defensive
defensive touchdowns. So, I mean, everything just sort of went right for that Oberlin Phoenix. They gave up a few touchdowns, but they were putting the ball in the end zone on both sides of the ball. But Jaden Harris and Dante Colbert of the Oberlin Phoenix are my top 2. Very impressive performances by those gentlemen.
All right, so that's the top 2 from these 2. We'll do this every week on the Blitz. All right, Matt Douglass, as far as Week 4 action is concerned, any game or games that really stand out for you?
Well, I'll tell you what, Tim. I called that Elyria Catholic Bay game. Bay Rockets upsetting the Elyria Catholic Panthers. I think a lot of people had the Panthers favored to win that one. I'm intrigued to see how they bounce back. They get Buckeye this week. Luckily, it's our Medina County matchup. It'll be on WEOL.com, stream number 3. And luckily, I get to do color commentary for that game as well. So I'm going to be there live and in person. But I really want to see how they bounce back. They've been favored. I think a lot of people thought it was going to be hard to beat them. And They made it look kind of easy the way they did it. They had 2 pick sixes, 4 interceptions in the game. How did the Panthers back? I think that'll tell us a lot about what they're going to do this season.
And we talked about the new Lorain County League. As Matt said, basically it's a diminished version of the Patriot Athletic Conference. It's basically 8 teams that were in the pack. So week 1 of the new league starts this Friday night, and a game that really stands out, and luckily it's our radio game on WEOL. Clearview unbeaten on the year at Keystone, taking on a Wildcat team that's 2-1, could easily be 3-0. Lost a real tough one to the Bay Rockets. So Clearview Keystone, that's a game that really stands out to me.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how that one goes. I think right now those are the 2 favorites in that Lorain County League, and how fun is it that they get to play each other the first week of conference play?
Yep. Well, speaking of WEOL, let's go through the schedule that we'll have on AM 930. And again, it's not on this sweatshirt, but FM 100.3 and the mobile app and online. So as we just said, our radio game on Friday night over in LaGrange. It will be the Keystone Wildcats entertaining the Clearview Clippers. Should be a great game and should be an awesome contest to start the brand new league, the Lorain County League. Clearview at Keystone Friday night on the radio, and of course Stream 1 on the mobile app and online. And then on Stream 2, Fireland's coming off that big win over Vermilion, taking on that gritty Columbia team that we talked about.
Yeah, I think there's an opportunity for both to raise their heads high and come away with a victory here. Fireland's obviously getting their first one. They've got a little something to build off of. Like I said, Columbia defensively has been outstanding. They got to get that offense going. They've been decimated by a couple of injuries here and there, not making it any easier. But I think this is one Columbia has to look at, too, and say, look, we're very capable. I think this is going to be a close game, and I think the better team will prevail in the end.
I believe you're right. And then as Matt also said, what a Medina County matchup we have for you on Friday night. That'll be Stream 3 on the app and online. Medina County matchup, Elyria Catholic at Buckeye. That one should be a lot of fun. 2 programs that certainly know the tradition of winning.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. The new conference for the Buckeye Bucks. They made their mark early with a 38-7 victory over Bay in conference play. Only loss of the season's been to Revere. So Elyria Catholic's only loss is to Bay. Conference still very much wide open, and this is a big game to help determine who might win that thing.
All right, so that's going to do it for this week's edition of The Blitz, brought to you by WEOL, AM 930 and FM 100.3, and of course the Chronicle Telegram as we put this together each and every week in the Chronicle Telegram studios. Matt, thanks to you. Bruce Bishop and Kristen Bauer, thanks to you. And of course, biggest thanks goes to you, the viewers. Hope you enjoyed it. Get out and watch some high school football in week 4, and we'll talk to you again next week. So long, everybody.